It is 7:32 p.m. on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. Good evening. My name is Christian Klein, and I'm the chair of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to call this meeting of the board to order. First, I'd like to confirm all members and anticipated officials are present. So members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, do we have Roger DuPont with us tonight? Let's see, Mr. DuPont. Colleen, do you mind sending a text to Roger and just to see if he's available?
I'm doing that now.
Perfect, thanks. We have Patrick Hanlon. I see Pat there.
Yeah.
We have Venkat Hully.
Yes.
Have you with us? We have Adam LeBlanc.
Here.
And we have our associates. We have Brad Baranowski.
Here.
And we have Nick Rosenberg.
Here.
You with us as well. And then from the town, we have Colleen Ralston, our clerk and zoning assistant.
Here.
Good to have you with us. So our two agenda items tonight. The first is docket 3865 29 Hemlock Street. They are requesting a withdrawal, so I don't believe that they are going to attend. But is anyone here for 29 Hemlock Street? None. Then the other is docket 3878 190 Mystic Valley Parkway. Dina Brower, I see you are with us. You're here. So with that, tonight's meeting of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with the bill signed by Governor Healy on March 28th, 2025, which extended temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to June 30th, 2027. The extension of these provisions allows public bodies to hold their meetings remotely by providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations. This meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast by ACMi. Members of the public who are participating via Zoom and who wish to offer public comment should be aware that they will be asked to provide their full name and address so that a complete public record of the meeting can be taken in accordance with state law. All participants of this meeting are advised that people may be listening to the meeting without offering public comment, and those people are not required to identify themselves. Any votes that are taken this evening will be conducted by roll call vote. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. And as chair, I reserve the right to take items out of order in the interest of promoting an orderly meeting. As the board will be taking up new business at this meeting, as chair, I make the following land acknowledgement. Whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Arlington, Massachusetts, discusses and arbitrates the use of land in Arlington, formerly known as Menotomy, an Algonquin word meaning swift waters, the board hereby acknowledges that the town of Arlington is located on the ancestral lands of the Massachusetts tribe, the tribe of indigenous peoples from whom the colony, province, and commonwealth have taken their names. We pay our respects to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their descendants who still inhabit historic Massachusetts territories today. So to start our meeting, we have our administrative items. These items relate to the operation of the board, and as such will generally be conducted without input from the general public. The board will not take up any new business on any prior hearings, nor will there be the introduction of any new information on matters previously brought before the board. So item 2 on our agenda is the vote on the approval of the meeting minutes from October 25th, 2025. So these are minutes that were prepared by Colleen Ralston, distributed to the board for questions and comments, and final versions posted, I believe, yesterday to the board. Are there any additional comments in regards to the minutes from October 28th? Seeing none, I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Arlington approve the minutes from the October 28th, 2025 meeting of the board. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Then a roll call vote of the members present. Mr. DuPont's not with us tonight, so Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Hully?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes from our November 25th, 2025 meeting. Again, these were prepared by Ms. Ralston distributed the board for questions and comments. Final version posted yesterday. Are there any additional questions or comments as they relate to the minutes for the November 25th meeting? Seeing none, I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Arlington approve the minutes from the November 25th, 2025 meeting of the board.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So roll call vote of those present. Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Those minutes are approved. Brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which is the approval of, number 4 on our agenda, which is the approval of the decision on docket 3872, 15 Foster Street, unit number 1. This is a hearing that was closed at our last session. The decision was prepared by myself, distributed to the board for questions and comments, and the final version posted back this morning. Are there any additional questions or comments as they relate to the written decision for docket 3872, 15 Foster Street, unit 1? Seeing none, I will move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Arlington approve and adopt the written decision in docket 3872, 15 Foster Street, Unit 1, which grants a special permit for a porch enclosure within the front yard setback under Section 539D in the zoning bylaw.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So vote of available members for this hearing. So we had Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So those are that decision is approved. Brings us to item 5 on the agenda, which is the approval of the decision in docket 3876, 19 Farrington Street. This is a hearing that was closed at our previous hearing. We had the decision prepared by Mr. Baranowski, distributed to the board for questions and comments, and final version posted back to the board, I believe, yesterday. With that, are there any additional questions or comments as they relate to the decision for docket 3876, 19 Farrington Street? Seeing none, I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Arlington approve and adopt the written decision in docket 3876, 19 Farrington Street, which grants a special permit for porch enclosure within the front yard setback under Section 539D in the zoning bylaw.
Second.
Thank you. With Mr. Hanlon on that one. So roll call vote of the members present. We have, in the absence of, so Mr. DuPont was not available last time, so he is not eligible to vote. With that, Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That decision is approved. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda, the approval of the decision in 387720 Nicot Street. This was also a hearing that was closed at our previous session. Decision was drafted by Mr. Hanlon, distributed to the board for questions and comments, and the final version posted back to the board today. Are there any additional questions or comments as they relate to the decision in docket 387720 Nicot Street? Seeing none, I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Arlington approve and adopt the written decision in docket 387720 Nicod Street, which grants a special permit to expand a porch within a front yard setback under Section 539D in the zoning bylaw.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it might be even cleaner if I made that motion, since I believe
I would agree that is true.
so I would like to move exactly what the chair said a moment ago to approve this this opinion.
Thank
Second.
you for that, Mr. Hanlon. And then a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. So with that, a roll call vote of the members eligible. We have Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski,
Yes.
and Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Thank you all. So that one is approved. So that concludes the administrative items, which brings us to, excuse me, our public hearing. So before opening tonight's meeting for public hearings, here's some ground rules for clear and effective conduct of tonight's business. After I announce each agenda item, I will ask the applicant to introduce himself or themselves and to make their presentation to the board. I will then request that the members of the board ask questions they have on the proposal, and after the board's questions have been answered, I will open the meeting for public comment. At the conclusion of public comment, the board will deliberate and vote to either continue or close the public hearing. All votes will be conducted by roll call vote. The final vote on any matter before the board will be taken at a subsequent meeting once the written decision has been drafted and provided to the board. After the decision has been adopted and signed, the decision will be filed with the town clerk, starting the 20-day appeal period under state law. After that time, the applicant may proceed with their building permit. However, under state law, no decision granted by this board shall take effect until a certified copy of the final decision has been filed with and recorded at the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds in Cambridge by the applicant. So with that, the first of our two hearings tonight is docket 3865, 29 Hemlock Street. So this is a hearing that was opened several months in the past. It has been continued a couple times, and the board did receive on the December 8th a communication from the lawyer for the applicant requesting that they are to withdraw their application for a variance. So they are requesting to withdraw the variance. The board would need to vote to accept the request to withdraw the variance. So are there any questions from the board in regards to this matter? Seeing none, I will move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Arlington accept the request to withdraw the variance application for 29 Hemlock Street without prejudice.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. Okay, so Mr. Dupont again is not with us this evening. Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that with 29 Hemlock Street has been withdrawn. So that brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which is docket 3878, 190 Mystic Valley Parkway. This will be the first hearing for this application, which is a request for a special permit, a variance, is what I see here is filed under section 322D of the zoning bylaw. But with that, I would ask the applicant to go ahead and introduce themselves and tell us what they are proposing to do.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Dina Brower, and I'm at 190 Mystic Valley Parkway with my husband, who is unavailable to join us. And we have submitted an application for a variance, understanding that that would be sort of like under which clause we would be able to possibly have an additional parking space. The current situation is that we have a shared side-by-side drive, I guess. Maybe that's not the technical way you would call it, on the side of the condo of 85 Park Street. So we're a corner property. Our neighbors who are present this evening. So the parking space that we currently use is right by their front door, under their sort of windows on that side. And we wanted to see if there was an option to have an additional parking space on the other side, closer to our front door, to allow for their privacy, for their space, but also for ourselves to have, sometimes we have older relatives coming to visit, or, shopping, groceries, and so on to unload, and it would make, things a little bit more convenient. So really wanted to explore that. The reason specifically for a variance was my understanding that given the property being on a corner, it's a little bit more tricky to kind of have the setback as indicated, but also if we did, we would be sort of like having a driveway or parking space right over the sewage easement that goes across our property. So having sort of taken advice from the administrator who sort of guided us a little bit very generously, this is what we're kind of asking to see what you guys propose and what would be possible.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead. Go ahead and share the proposed site plan. So what we have here, so this is Mystic Valley Parkway. We have Park Street. We have Coral Street that comes in right at the same intersection. This is the existing house. This is the location of their current driveways are in this area here. Or I should say the place where they park their cars, and I'll explain why I'm being clear about that. The place they park their cars are in this location currently on the site. And they are proposing to add parking in this area here towards the front of the house. And this is a similar plan. So this is as the applicant had noted, this is the parking space that's used currently for 190, which is the front unit, and this is the parking that's currently used for number 85, which is the rear unit of the house. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share. So you had noted that currently you park side by side in the front of the house. When I had gone to take a look at this site, I noticed that between the house now and the adjacent property, there's no longer a driveway, that driveway was removed, and it's now a grassy area between the house and the side lot line. Is that correct?
I believe there are still sort of tiles, so our neighbors have parked. There is a driveway that can go further down. We have parked in tandem. Occasionally, there's a third car if we have a guest or other family members visiting. So the driveway still exists. There is grass,
Okay.
but there are tiles, so that it is possible to park in
Okay.
tandem.
And the reasoning behind that question is that parking is not allowed in the front yard setback, except on a driveway, and it's only a driveway if it leads to legal parking. So it's important that that parking space still remain between the side of the house and the adjacent property, in order for the parking that's there today to be considered valid. So I just wanted to confirm that was still the case. So this property was before the board back in 2021 when it was first developed. It was docket 38561. And the developer at that point had made sort of a similar request to have a parking space in this general area. At the time they had purchased the older house, they had expanded the house along Park Ave. So they actually had space for two side-by-side parking spaces at the time, and they removed the space for one of the cars. So it's only a single width of parking up the side of the house. So they were seeking a special permit at the time to add a second driveway, as was required under 6110A or 6110B maybe, but 6110. Because they had originally requested from the state a permit to construct a driveway off of Mystic Valley Parkway, and that was not allowed by the state. And so they had come before the board then to put a parking space in this general position. So the sketch that you had provided, and I'll go ahead and reshare that. So you are showing would effectively be coming in off of Park Street, fairly close to the intersection with Coral Street, and coming straight in, and then is the intention that it would end at this portion of the house?
Yes. So I guess the proposal sort of to abide by the sort of determination that has to go past the house, then it would have to be right abutting the stairwell. Just to clarify, I had seen the drawings for the original proposal by the builder, and the driveway was further out, sort of like more cutting into the front lawn a lot more, so not this close to the house. if that makes a difference. And it would have been really over the um, sewage easement. And
Okay.
it would mean also that you drive over a manhole that is on the sidewalk, kind of further closer to the tree.
Mhm.
I have taken measurements from the stop sign to the proposed sort of like edge of the driveway is about 33 feet. And I understand the concern of being close to an intersection which is quite busy, but currently I would say that when I need to unload and other people do, we end up parking right there. So when
Mhm.
the car is parked right sort of close to that tree, pretty fairly close, I guess, still within legal limits, but fairly close to the stop sign. And you know, there's definitely a lot of traffic in the mornings in particular, with a lot of cyclists coming from Coral Street down Park as they make their way to the schools in the neighborhood. Having a car parked there definitely blocks the view, and I think it's just not as safe. So having a driveway would mean that nobody would park there, and it would kind of clear the space as well for visibility as people come and go. That's just one sort of
Yep.
perspective, obviously from my perspective, but
Yep. So the parking space needs to be at least 8.5 feet wide by 18 feet long.
mhm.
So it would need to, and it can't be within that front yard as defined between your house and Park Street. So it would need to go 18 feet past that front corner. So that front part of the house is noted as 12.6 feet. So it would need to go the additional 5.4 feet, um, which you thought would extend to the edge of the steps. Is that correct?
Yes, this is where the steps end. I mean,
Hmm.
I would have to remove the steps, or you'd have to kind of push it further out towards Mystic Valley Parkway, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So if you moved it towards Mystic Valley, you'd be over the sewage easement even more,
Right.
and you would access it by driving over the manhole. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
Would the elevation of
Another,
the,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
I don't know if I know it doesn't fit in with being past the house, but the other possibility would be to sort of park it. I don't even know how to describe this, on the other side of the tree, sort of like, so without going past the corner of the house, but staying in front, sort of like right
Right.
at the edge of the corner of the house. So similar to what's happening on the other side of the house on 85, but just really close to the corner. They're just going to be right there. It's kind of more sheltered, more out of the way. And also, I guess aesthetically, it wouldn't cut into this beautiful sort of open space that
Hmm.
is, we haven't fenced it. There's a matching open space on Coral Street. There's open space across the street. It kind of gives a very sort of like neighborly feel of having just,
Yep.
grass and a few sort of trees, but a very kind of open view to it. So I'm trying not to cut
Yep.
into that landscaping really.
Okay. Yeah. So, but the board, so the zoning bylaw does not allow parking spaces within the front yard.
Hmm.
So it would require a variance, and in order to approve something like that, and there are very specific requirements under state law for what one may, the reasons that one may grant a variance. So,
Hmm.
um, that would take some specific, a specific proposal and, sort of a real evaluation of what the request is. Um,
And my question is whether the sewer easement that is just
mhm.
across the property can sort of provide a reason for a variance, like avoiding being over it, because that's the safest space to avoid being over it without actually, again,
Mhm.
ruining the aesthetics, you know, for the
Right.
entire neighborhood, really, of sort of
Well,
cutting into.
yeah, I mean, my understanding is you can build over the sewer easement. The issue is just that should access be required to the easement, that, the driveway would need to be removed so that they could access it. And when they were completed, you could put the driveway back. So the sewer easement is not precluding the use of that for a driveway. It's just, on the off chance that they ever need to open that easement, that there would be some disruption to the driveway at that time.
Mhm.
So I'll open this up for questions from the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon.
so when I'm looking here, it indicates that the driveway that you have proposed is 21 feet from the lot line. It extends in 21 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so if you were trying to do you know how far, at that point, how far out is the house from the lot line? Do you know?
In which direction? It's a little complicated when you don't really have a, we don't really have a, we have
Towards
two
Park
fronts or
Street.
two
Towards Park Street,
rears.
along the driveway.
Right. So it's about there's about 18 feet from sort of the edge of the curb or the sidewalk to the corner, roughly.
Okay, so the rule is you can't park in the front setback, and the front setback goes back.
But it's really not my front setback. That's a tricky thing. The front for me is Mystic Valley Parkway because that's my entrance.
The front for the town is that both of them are front yards, and both of them. That's what the law is. So
Okay.
whether it's what you do or not, that's what being on a quarter lot does.
Okay.
But the front setback is 15 feet, isn't it, Mr. Chairman, here in the R2 area?
R2 is, I believe it's 20 actually, but I can confirm that quickly.
Okay, so if it's 20, that means that if it's 20, that means that the house itself is in the front yard? That seems. I'm trying to figure out, though, how far back, how much, in order to comply with the zoning bylaw, how much longer does this driveway have to be? Because
The front yard setback is 20 feet.
okay, so you need to get, what, 38? Do you need to go past that far? And then you need to go another 18 feet to get one parking space. And to do that, if you're assuming you're starting from starting from where the house is, you've got to go back quite a bit further, I think, than you have. A lot more than just through the past where the landing is. And I'm not quite sure how far that is or whether you even have room to do that, but it's quite a bit short to be. You see, the underlying idea is that the driveway to be a driveway has to lead to a legal space, and the legal space has to be entirely outside the front setback, and it has to meet the dimensional requirements of the legal space, which here would be 18 feet. And you are back about 21, and you need to be back somewhere in the neighborhood of 38. So you need to move it pretty far further back. It's not almost there. It is true, though, isn't it, that while it'd be nice to avoid the sewer easement, a good portion of this driveway of your proposed driveway is also over the sewer easement, isn't it? There's just a little bit that isn't.
A little bit, yeah. You're correct.
So it's not a decisive difference, really. You'll still have the inconvenience, unless you're lucky, of having to remove it or remove most of it in the event that they have to dig up the easement. Okay, so I just wanted to try to make sure that we have the dimensions straight here. Now, I happen to be looking at a document that's different from the one you have here. That has an option 1 and an option 2. Is that option 2 really before us, or is that really beside the point now, and we're only looking at the option that's the one off Park Street? Yep, that's the one I was looking at.
Right.
I'm just
So as the
wondering.
chairman said earlier, that I wasn't aware that there was an application was made by the builder to the Parkway Authority to get a driveway from Mystic Valley, and that was denied.
Right.
I suggested it there because I wasn't aware, but it's really not a preferred option because the sight lines are so dire. I know our neighbors at on our right really struggle, to come in and out. In fact, a number of them park on the street a lot, very often, just because it's really treacherous to get out.
I live on Park Street, so I'm pretty familiar with this.
Okay.
Use it to take my grandchildren home. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick questions. One, I think I'm understanding the dimensions here, but was this proposal to go over the manhole cover, or would the manhole cover be to the side of this? Because it looks like it's hard to tell from the photograph, but I don't know how much width you have between the house line, from a line going perpendicular from Park Street to the house, and then over the width of a driveway. Are you on the manhole, or is that within the manhole?
So that would be really tight, avoiding the manhole. If we moved further away from the house so that we could go further behind the house, then we'd be driving over the manhole.
Well, I
The
thought that,
manhole's closer to the tree.
okay. But I thought we're talking about, I think the discussion before was how deep that has to go perpendicular to Park Street. And I think, I thought if it's 38 feet, I think you have 18.9 to the house, 12.6 from that bump out, right? So I think you need another 6 or 7 feet into that landing, into the stairs, right? For the length. My math could be wrong. But regardless, I'm talking about the width going from the line of the house on the right side of that, what that driveway would be across. You're saying that the manhole would be on the left side of that driveway and wouldn't be in the driveway.
That's correct. So if we wanted to go deeper, we would be driving over the manhole. I'm actually looking at some measurements that I took that for some reason, I think the drawing may be slightly off. The builder gave me this drawing, and I don't know if the actual stairs ended up being positioned exactly as in the drawing, because my measurement was that from the sidewalk to the edge of the house, there are 200 inches and another 192 from the edge of the stairs to the, so we're talking about 392 inches altogether.
Okay. I think you have some other issues. I just for myself, I'm very sympathetic. I get it. I appreciate you're trying to make it easier on all of you at this house for your parking. Unfortunately, I think developer cited this project and designed it and proposed it to the town to fit 2 units on this lot and enough parking, and that's what was built. The other question I have is more a general statement or question is that I'm wondering why under 6.1.10, I recognize others are more experienced with this than I am, but this wouldn't require a special permit as well, in addition to a variance. My reading is that only one driveway is permitted on a lot. So there may be an exception that I'm not aware of, but I would just raise that to consider if you come back before the board at some point.
So
that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the board is allowed to authorize a second driveway by special permit, but that driveway and parking has to meet all of the other requirements. So there can be the board couldn't allow for a parking space that only meets some of the requirements. So it would have to meet all the requirements that are under the bylaw for that parking space, which may be, I think, partly the reason for the variance. I was going to go ahead and share the Google Street View because I think that sort of helps to see a little bit what we're doing here. So this is the house here to the right. We're looking basically straight up the existing walkway that goes to the front door. There's the manhole that we've been talking about sort of there in the front. There's this public street tree here, public shade tree. And there's another tree here in the yard, and then another street tree back here. And then closer to the corner, there's the utility pole. And so this was, when was this taken? This was taken in 22, so it's a few years old at this stage.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. LeBlanc.
if you could just go back to where you were before on that Google Street View, I just have a question.
Please.
That window that looks like it's to the basement that's facing Mystic Valley Parkway, is that a bedroom down there?
I would
It's
ask
a
the applicant.
It's a multi-purpose room. We don't use it as a bedroom on that end. We have a guest bed on the other side of it. But yes, it is close to the basement window, and
Mhm.
the space of having a car there isn't ideal. I mean, the way I see it, as I said before, the manhole, anything to the further away from the manhole makes it tricky. There's not enough space between the tree and the manhole, so driving over the manhole seems kind of not ideal. Being over the sewage easement, I understand, is not legally impossible, but is not ideal. And being that
Yeah,
close,
it just looks like it's an egress window.
Mhm.
So
It
that
is.
way so if it is, you would have to be away from that window, at least 3 feet. So that does start to push that driveway towards Mystic Valley Parkway. So in the diagrams that we have, you actually wouldn't be able to put the driveway that close to the existing structure because you can't put the driveway over that egress window. So just as we're talking about the placement of the driveway, I think it probably does need to lend itself closer to Mystic Valley Parkway for that reason. So then we would be talking about being in conflict with that manhole cover
Mhm.
and also the tree.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon.
I just in relationship to that, when the when the developer was here before us and was one of his options, there were a number that we discussed, but one of them was to bring a driveway in this general area, but he had it starting further back away from that shade tree because it would be hard to preserve the public tree coming straight in. And it sort of curved outside the area where he had the landing indicated, and then going considerably further across the lot than is proposed here. But the key to all of that is that he didn't imagine that it had to be a straight line, that you could curve it, and by doing that, get the curve cut a little bit further away from the intersection, further away from the tree, but still not have to stop, or still not putting it that close to the house and still not having to stop at the landing. And that would have, I think, missed the manhole cover as well. That's part of what was going on. So we have I don't know that Ms. Brower has but there is in the record a drawing of that proposal. I forget the reason why it didn't immediately get enormous degree of enthusiasm from the board, but at least it's something that almost literally threads the needle in addressing some of the issues we've been talking about. I don't know whether Ms. Brower has rejected that idea or considered that idea or where the situation is, but obviously the fact that you're coming straight in is making it hard for me to some other things. Mr. Chairman, that is not the proposal that I'm thinking. There is another one which actually literally starts away from the curve more and then curves in.
So you're suggesting it's almost like a semicircle or
Well, it's not a
round.
semicircle. It's really was just a kind of creating a curve, starting and curving in the beginning, and then it straightens out and then goes straight across. It doesn't solve your problem with the sewer easement because it's more over the sewer easement than you are, but neither of you are entirely not over it. So that wasn't at the time, that wasn't thought of as the issue. Unfortunately, I have none of the. I'm sort of looking at the names of all of the things that I have here, and I don't know which is the one that has the right one. But if you bear with me and continue the discussion, I'll eventually be able to find it.
I think I might have found it. So it's sort of turned 180 from where we were before. But you would come in and then turn to the front and come across.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
maybe I'm just misreading this, but is it connecting to, I obviously see the driveway and the curve and
Yeah.
everything. And is it connecting, what's it connected to in the back? Is that additional parking or what is that?
So this was something that the applicant had considered as a way to get the parking out of the front yard because this was close. This was too close to the front yard.
Right.
So they were looking, well, they're like, well, we could we could extend the driveway all around the house, and then we could have parking here that's within the side yard. But then you would need to come out, and there was concern about being able having to back all the way out. So they're like, well, we could put this little piece here so you could back into here and come out. And at the time, there was a lot of concern that it was just basically paving a moat around the house, I think was the operable phrase during the previous hearing. So there's just a considerable amount of paving to do that.
We'll have to worry about your basement flooding. It'll just run away, I guess, but okay, that's clear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're welcome.
How many parking spaces, Mr. Chairman, remind me whether the applicant was attempting at that time all of his parking spaces in this area rather than splitting it up the way? I've forgotten.
So they were still having this a
Okay.
driveway that went the full width at the back. So this driveway actually, I believe, provided 2 spaces past the edge of the house. So there were 2 parking spaces here, and then I don't know if they were in. This would only have the one legal space because this is not 36 feet. But I believe the notion at the time was that there would be one space that this would all be for the front unit, and this would be for exclusively for the rear unit. But this is not what ended up in the final
Right.
plan.
So I guess the question here is whether by playing a little bit with the shape of the driveway, it's possible to make it come across sort of outside the landing so that it can go a little bit further and at the same time not be in the front setback of Mystic Valley.
I think we would need a surveyor to evaluate that.
Yeah.
Are there other questions from the board at this time? None.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hanlon.
we're about ready to go into public comment, and I wondered if it would be helpful in guiding the public members of the public who are going to talk about this, if the chair could spend a minute and a half just saying what the criteria are that has to be met in order for this to qualify for a variance, because as we all know, the criteria isn't which is the best idea.
Sure. So a variance falls under state law, and so the requirements are established under state law, and it's a 4-part test effectively, and all 4 parts need to be met in order for a variance to be granted, and they all build upon each other. So the first is that there's a circumstance relating to the soil condition, the shape, or topography, especially affecting such land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it's located, that would substantiate the grant of a variance. So that means there's specifically something about the soil shape or topography of this piece of land relative to everything around it that is different and unique that lends itself to needing the a variance because you can't use the property in the way that you would intended to use the property. The second is that a literal enforcement of the provisions of the zoning bylaw, specifically relating to the circumstances affecting the land or structures noted above, would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the applicant. So basically that, following the word for word what the zoning bylaw requires, because of the conditions that were identified initially, that following the bylaw would cause a substantial hardship to the petitioner. The third is that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, so that the adjustment can be made in a way that doesn't generally affect the public and doesn't cause any kind of detriment. And the last is that the relief can be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of the zoning bylaw, so that doing so doesn't create a situation which the town had very deliberately tried to avoid having, or creates a situation of something that the town really does not want to have. So that's what's required for a variance. So with that,
So Chairman, can I ask you to clarify that last?
Absolutely.
What is the intent? So what is the intent of, having a setback that goes at least 18 feet behind the house? I understand that when homes are side by side and all
Yep.
face, but on a corner property, that
Mhm.
last drawing you showed, it was
Yep.
literally a horseshoe. It
Oh,
has
yeah.
to be 18 every side.
Yep. So what
It's-
the difficulty of this site is that it had legal parking. It had perfect legal parking. It had side-by-side spaces.
Mhm.
The developer took that away and did not have a good way to remedy that.
Mhm.
And so that's unfortunately why we're looking at other places on the lot, because the place on the lot where the parking logically would go was unfortunately removed by the developer back 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Um,
I hear that clearly, but
yeah,
also he was granted permission to turn this into 2 properties.
it was originally a two-family house, so it was one above the other. He converted it to
Okay.
a duplex side by side. So it was always two-family. The
Okay.
driveway had about like a 16-foot wide driveway that went the full
Mhm.
depth. So there's plenty of room for 2 cars side by side. You could easily fit 4 vehicles in that driveway. But for whatever reason, that was done. And unfortunately for the applicant, for the developer at that time, and unfortunately now for yourselves, had gone ahead and done the building part without getting the approval first the from the Mystic Valley Parkway authorities, and so realized unfortunately too late that they didn't have the parking that they thought they had, and then had to
Right.
try to scrounge. And so I think unfortunately, if you look at the condo documents where it sort of shows where the parking is and such, you can sort of see, unfortunately, it's the the reason that there's just a single parking space, I believe, for 190 is that was the only sort of piece of land that was
Squeeze
contiguous
it.
with the existing driveway that they could establish a parking space on. And so
I
that's
really
why it ended
appreciate
up there.
that. But just kind of sorry to take you back. So
Yeah.
like the intent of having the space go further,
Yeah.
another 18 feet at least from the corner of the house. Could you expand on that? Is that about aesthetics?
So I don't know specifically what the argument was at town meeting when it was put into effect. I don't know how far back it goes. But effectively in all districts in Arlington, whether it's residential or commercial or industrial, parking is not allowed in the front yard setback. And sort of what the town has agreed is that you can park on the driveway within the front yard setback, but that can't be the sole parking. There has to be a legal parking space beyond that. And legal spaces, there's a few definitions for what a legal space can be and how big it has to
Right.
be and
We've
where it
just
can
gone through
be.
that. Yeah, I
But it
appreciate
has to do that.
that.
I agree that on a corner lot, it makes things more difficult because you don't have one front yard, you have 2 front yards. And so you are trying to deal with how do you do it where it's not in the front yard itself. The front yard only extends 20 feet in. So on the side facing Mystic Valley Parkway, if you can establish where that line is, and if you can keep the parking space outside of that 20-foot zone, then there's a possibility that you can establish a legal space in that area. But that's something you would definitely need to work out with a surveyor so that you could be definitive about where that line is, where those points are, and that kind of thing.
So you're saying that it would have to be, as in the last drawing, we looked at literally a horseshoe all the way around the house.
So no, so if you were to
so kind of following the rules kind of defeats seems to in the end kind of clash with your perhaps original value behind it of having, a possibility of checking your cars out of sight.
Yeah, so I mean that prior one that was looking at moving it down here, the reason they were doing that was that this driveway, they were keeping it far from the house. So because this was far, this was wide, this is a 12-foot wide. So by the time you get to here, you've lost you're now in the front yard. Whereas, as you had said before, you thought that you could keep the driveway tight to the house, and that would keep it outside of the front yard setback. And if that's the case, then you don't need to. You are out of the front yard because you're past the line of the front yard. So you would be, if you paved, sort of this area, and this dimension from here to the line was less than 20 feet, then that would possibly meet the requirements for a parking space. But short of having this surveyed and somebody drafting the lines on the plan, it's difficult to know what those dimensions really are.
But I'd like to go back to the sort of requirements for a variance. And so, there isn't an issue maybe with the soil, but there's definitely an issue with, the location in composition between the tree, the manhole, the easement, the window that's been pointed out is an egress. And so all the conditions are just really sort of making it that the way the lot is makes it
so
quite
the lot is
complicated.
flat. It's a flat lot. So there's nothing about the topography. As
But it's
you
combination
noted,
of the different items on that space.
well, the shape. So just going back through them. So topography, there's nothing on topography. Shape, it's a rectangular lot on a corner. There's lots of rectangular lots on corners. And the soils, there's nothing in the soils. So is there something in what else is there inherent about this property that's different from other properties? There's this easement connects a lot of different properties. That's something the board would need to evaluate if that's causes something about that imposes on this site that doesn't impose on others. But we've stated that having the easement doesn't preclude you from putting a driveway on. It just means that whatever driveway you put they need to be able to access underneath it. So it may need to come up at some point in the future.
Well, that would definitely be an issue in terms of like cost and financial burden to me, having to put a driveway without knowing whether it could be safely there. But I think I understand it's just a combination of having the easement, the manhole, the tree, where it's located in terms of accessing all of that. And then even if, we were able to put a horseshoe, driveway all the way around the house to sort of meet all the requirements of this front corner property. Again, that's a huge amount of like paving, taking away from like the natural sort of like landscaping and also the cost of putting that in. So it may not fit perfectly the soil thing, but there is definitely a series of kind of like things kind of together that make it quite awkward, really.
So if the board was to make a determination on a variance request, I think speaking for the board, we would need to see much more detailed documentation about what you're intending to do. Because right now it's just very loose. It's some lines on a paper, it's not drafted, there's no dimension, we don't know how far things really are. We would need to see definitive drawings for what exactly you're intending, because a variance is recorded at the Registry of Deeds and it becomes a legal change to the property, and so it has to be properly documented before we could proceed on a variance.
Right.
Um,
But
for
just to
special,
kind of clarify,
yep.
a variance in terms of allowing the car to just go up to the stairwell and not have 18 additional 18 feet? Is
So
that what
you would,
you're?
so you would, I can't tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to decide what is important to you and what you would need to meet your needs, and then you would need to come before the board with documentation that explains why this is what you need and this is why you need it and this is why a variance should be granted.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon?
just want to be clear. We've had a lot of cases actually. Special permit cases tend to be granted eventually, but sometimes with lots of conditions. Variance cases often are not granted. And the reason has to do primarily really with the soil's topography and shape. That was originally put in by the legislature in order to stop people from basically saying it's a good idea, and if there's other way of hardship, and usually if there's no neighbors opposing it, then why not? And the answer for the legislature is that you're giving way too many variances. So they restricted it. So there are a lot of places where it makes perfectly good sense to do what the applicant wants to do, and we have had to say no. In one case, I remember there was a case for somebody who didn't need to get a variance, wanted exactly the same thing as somebody who did get a variance, and somebody who didn't need it because it was a prior nonconformity that caused the problem. They got it, and the neighbors who had the same problem didn't get it. So much of what Ms. Brower has been talking about goes to the second condition of why it is there's a hardship. But we have typically found it really hard to get past the first thing of finding that the hardship is the product of soil shape or topography. And we don't do that usually by looking at the same things that are causing the hardship and sort of saying, if it looks unreasonable, then surely they should get a variance. You really have to tie it to soil conditions, which means just what it says, to topography, which has to do with changes in the height or the shape of the lot. And here, the thing that Ms. Brower has got a problem with is that the real reason why it is that there's such a big problem is that the developer who built her house built the house for what became Unit 85 into what used to be the driveway. And the house is now big enough that it's taken up the space that previously was used and could be used to provide the necessary parking. And that's a little bit hard to get around. And it's especially when you have to meet all four of these conditions, not just one or just three or just two, but all four. And it's a challenge. So I don't want to sort of, it would be a hard, even if Ms. Brower was able to come up with something that was a little different that still needed a variance, I don't want to encourage her to come back and say, well, you sort of suggested maybe the shape and so forth isn't so important. It is, and this is really hard. Now, if she could get the surveyor to figure out a compliant proposal or something that is sufficiently compliant that all we have is the special permit issue about whether to have two driveways, that would be a very different case. But the issue is not possibly to do just a little better. The issue is maybe to figure out a way of avoiding the non-compliance altogether.
I really
Mr. Oh,
Go ahead. Sorry, just I have to ask permission to speak. Yeah.
Was there somebody else on the board who was?
I was going to add something to Mr. Hanlon.
Yes, Mr. Granowski.
I would just add, I agree with everything what Mr. Hanlon said. I would just say also, it's not just us. It's not that we're taking an unduly stringent view of the variant statute. The fact that the statute is important, and there are ample mass appeals courts, mass land court cases that interpret this statute. And we have to give dual effect to the statute as the courts have interpreted. So I just want to be clear, it's not that we're being particularly stringent. This is a matter of state law, so our hands are somewhat tied too.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Browski. Ms. Brower?
Thank you. No, I really appreciate the clarification. And I understand now that it's really like, very, I guess, tightly defined with topography. I also understand the frustration with the fact that, there was ample driveway and the developer did what he did. I guess as a kind of new Arlington's, member, we bought the property as was. We didn't really kind of get to see so much of the history until we started digging. Yes, the house has taken up more space, but it's also, I think, increased the value and therefore the taxes that we pay as, and so I guess it would be really helpful to understand if there is a possibility, all I really want to is to be able to drive, to actually park the car, not past the house, but just leave it. So let's say we had a driveway that was a bit curved, but if I actually had the car where if you bring back the Google view where the dustbins are, in between that pine tree, which is on my property and sort of like the corner of the house, be out of the way. I could easily reverse it in and pull out from, usually I reverse into my drive so that it make it safer to, pull out. I think it would just give everybody a lot of, options. We could put some tiles that kind of, in theory, give us like access to a further space, behind the corner of the house. I'm curious whether you have a lot of experience with all of this. You might be able to kind of find a way to make that viable in some way. So I would not be blocking the egress in the basement.
I mean, I think you would I think you would do well by getting a surveyor involved who could really help you plot out where you could put a driveway, and specifically where you could locate that parking space in a way that avoids being within the front yard setbacks. And then from there, work out.
That's a lot. That's a huge financial hardship for something that is, unlikely to really solve much. I'm reluctant to actually put a lot more. I mean, destroy the landscape. I think this is a place that, the neighborhood walks past, everybody walks past the house to cross into the thing. It is, it's part of like, I'm an Italian. I've grown up with a sense of aesthetic. It really sort of matters a lot to me. And it also matters to me to, make sure there is some safety and, there's privacy and sort of space for my next door neighbors. I think, if it's possible to accommodate all things, I think that would be great. I think there's definitely, as we're going to be starting to, have perhaps an additional car as their kids are older and learning to drive, and there'll be two cars in tandem, and constantly to move a car around. I think in this busy section, especially in the mornings when there's a lot of kids and parents and cyclers, it just adds to the congestion. It's not ideal. Just those are some of the things that I see from my perspective. I work from home. Generally, I see all the people coming through. I see what goes on and how busy the corner is. I see what happens when cars are parked and people turn quite fast in and out, into Mystic, out of Coral into Mystic, from Park. It is definitely, it could be better. So those are some of the things I'm thinking about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. So at this point, I think it's important to open this up for public comment. But before opening tonight's meeting for public, so I will now be opening the meeting for public comment. Public questions and comments will be taken as they relate to the matter at hand and should be directed to the board for the purpose of informing its decision. Members of the public will be granted time to ask questions and make comments. Those who wish to address the board should digitally raise their hand using the button on the React tab in the Zoom application. Those calling in by phone, please dial *9 to indicate you would like to speak. You'll be called upon by the chair. You'll be asked to give your full name and address for the record, and you'll be given time for your questions and comments. All questions are to be addressed through the chair. Please remember to speak clearly. And once all public questions and comments have been addressed, the public comment period will be closed. So with that, are there members of the public who would like to address this application? Again, this is docket 3878190 Mystic Valley Parkway. If you're unable to access the React tab, you can just wave in your window and we'll call on you as well. With that, we have Mr. Steve Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Moore, Piedmont Street. I was unable to participate in the earlier discussion. I'm sorry that I missed out on this because I remember this case. And I remember the extensive amount of discussion around this property and the driveways, and the fact that the developer had done this to the house in a way that was sadly difficult to repair. And of the discussions that happened at the time, one of the options was to put the driveway right where it looks like is being offered by the applicant. And I'm sorry if I've missed out. I'm sorry if I say things that are out of line because I was not part of the early discussion. Two things I want to bring up are the tree locations that are near where this driveway would perhaps go. One of which is a public street tree and one of which is a private tree but protected in the setback of the property. There's an excellent chance that both root sets would be compromised by any construction of this particular driveway. And I know that it's not the choice of the applicant to do that, but things are so constrained here and so confined, I can't imagine that there's a way to do it otherwise. So I would that would not, you can't do that to a public street tree, number one. And it probably is not real smart to do it to one of the protected trees in your setback of the pine tree that looks like it's there. One of the other issues that came up, and I don't know if it's been a discussion point tonight, was a lot of the discussion of that former issue revolved around a driveway that close to a stop sign. And again, I don't know if this has been discussed tonight, but a driveway, if it's to be constructed, is just, I believe, too close to the stop sign of what is a complicated intersection. I raised this issue at that time. I don't remember now if it was a deciding point of the issue that came up, but the issue remains. It's a bad intersection and the traffic moves quickly on Mystic Valley. Having a driveway and someone coming out of the driveway that close to a stop sign and that close to traffic entering Park Street from the parkway is complicated and just not a great idea from my perspective. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Are there other members of the public who would like to address this application? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public comment period for this hearing. So board can now discuss the case and decide how to proceed. So what the board has before it, so it's a request for a second driveway. It is being put forward both as a special permit, which is required for a second driveway under section 6110. But in addition, is being put forth as a variance application, partly to, I think, to allow the applicant to pursue some additional options for how a driveway may be and a parking space may be incorporated onto the site. As we sort of noted before, that this is unfortunately a really complicated location, and this is something that has been before the board before. And in the prior case, the applicant, who was the prior developer, had withdrawn before a decision was made. So there is no official decision in the records in regards to this case. I think based on the discussion we've had so far, my recommendation to the applicant would be that if they would like to consider pursuing this further, that they really do need to get some more precise documentation about where exactly the parking would be, where exactly the driveway would be going, what the distance is from the sight lines, what the distance is from the house, what the distance is from the tree and the manhole and things like that, so that we can really know precisely what the effects of putting a driveway and putting a parking space in this area are going to be, and because the board is able to evaluate what it needs to evaluate and can reach findings that the board needs to find. That's not to say necessarily that if the applicant pursues this, that the board is going to be in a position to grant either a variance or a special permit based on what the determinations are, but just that at this point, I sort of feel that we don't have sufficient information to be able to make an informed decision on this case. I'd be interested to hear from some of the other members of the board, sort of what their sense is, what they would see as the way the board ought to proceed.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. LeBlanc.
I do agree with that if, this is something that the applicant wants to continue to pursue, that we do need more detailed and concrete documentation about what the proposal is. And if there is a way to make it not a variance and that it's a special permit application, I think that has an easier time going forward. Because right now I don't see a way that we get past the first test on the variance. Even with a updated proposal about driveway location, I just don't see how we get past that first test in the variance process.
Great, thank you. Other members of the board? Yeah, I'll go back to return to Ms. Brower. So the board has a couple different things it can do at this point. So one would be one option that we always have is to close the hearing. I think we're not at a point where we can close this hearing just because there's too much information that the board doesn't have. The board doesn't have what it needs in order to reach findings. So the board can continue if you would like to sort of continue pursuing this. What the board would request with a continuance is that, as we noted, that we really need much better documentation about what is being requested so that we're able to really evaluate what is going on. Another part of this that we haven't really discussed is the concept of usable open space. So usable open space is a requirement under the Arlington zoning bylaws. It requires that open land area that is not in use for driveways or for cars. If a piece of land has to be at least 25 by 25 feet in dimension, but the area of that has to be a certain percentage of the gross floor area of the overall house. It has to be at least, I believe, in 30% in the residential districts. So putting the driveway in could reduce the usable open space. And that calculation needs to be made as well, because if currently the property is conforming with regards to usable open space, and then putting the driveway in would make it that it's not conforming with usable open space, that would be another new nonconformity that would require a variance in order to approve. So that's another thing to keep in mind if you're speaking with a surveyor or a land engineer or a landscaper who could, assist you with developing the documentation you need. That's something else that they would need to calculate. So I guess my question to Ms. Brower is: Would you like the board to continue to give you some time to figure out sort of the way forward, and if you want to?
Thank you. No, I really, really appreciate everybody's time this evening, and I appreciate all the comments. I think, to my best understanding, it's been clearly established that there's nothing in the soil that would sort of justify a variance. And so, because as you clearly explained, the steps have to kind of stack on each other.
Yep.
There is no soil issue because it's about shape, soil, topography, and the issues that we have will not qualify as such. So I think the variance has now definitely been sort of taken out.
Mhm.
We've seen the drawings from the builder with the horseshoe shape.
Yeah.
And I'm having done some of the preliminary calculations myself, just looking, I don't think that would kind of fit with the usable space. It's also
Okay.
not something I would want to pursue because aesthetically it's just so unpleasing. So I guess the only, opening that I see is whether under the special permit,
Mhm.
the board would find some kind of solution where instead of parking where we're currently parking pretty much on the kind of flip side, the other corner of the house. Seeing that, in terms of aesthetics and everything else the neighborhood has, this is not a discrepancy. The distance from the stop sign seems to be quite adequate. You do not have, people are allowed to park all the way almost up to the stop sign right now. So in terms of like the traffic congestion and obscuring people turning in and out, that is an issue. So having a driver would actually block people from parking there and actually make it a little bit easier in terms of traffic. So that's what I can put in front of the board for consideration. I understand that there are very clear rules in terms of like the setback and the front and the back and all of that.
Yep.
But it just seems to be kind of, we can repeat the rules and kind of go in circles. So it's really up to the board to kind of, I guess, suggest what is a viable option. I don't think getting another horseshoe drawing is
No.
something I want to be pursuing. So if you tell me there's another option, I'm willing to, consider
Yeah. I mean, I think if let me go back to the screen. Let's find the right drawing first. Not that one. Oh, that's not bad. No, not that one. But this one. Oops, what did I just share? Nope, that's not what I meant to share.
so many documents and it's getting later.
Let's see, here we go. I wanted to share that one. So, so in this one here, so if you were able to, no, my rectangle is going to be that's not helpful. So if you were able to create a parking space, have a room here. So if this, yeah, so this shape here. So if that was a parking space, that was your 8.5 by 18, and that remained your distance from this point to the street exceeded 20 feet, so it was outside the front yard, and you were still able to maintain enough usable open space. Assuming if you don't have the usable open space now, then it's a
I think we
different
do.
situation, but that's a calculation somebody would need to make. But if this space could exist farther than 20 feet from the Mystic Valley Parkway, and it didn't interfere with anything else that you needed it to not interfere with, that could be considered as a parking space, and then you would need to have a driveway going to it that would not impact the manhole or the trees or whatever. That's something the board could discuss. The board would then need to do its usual evaluation for a special permit, where it needs to evaluate that the proposed condition, that the benefits of the proposal don't outweigh its negative impacts, which is the standard for a special permit.
That would be great if that's a possibility.
Yeah.
That's
So I
much
think
better.
probably the best thing would be for us to vote to continue the hearing. And we could find a sort of there's a couple options for dates. And that would give you an option to talk to, to get some advice and to come up with some and plans that the board can evaluate and then come back before us. So presently, the board does not, this is the last meeting of the board for the year. We're not meeting on December 23rd. So the first meetings in the new year would be Tuesday, January 13th and Tuesday, January 27th. And then February 10th, 24th. So would you want to come back at one of those January dates?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And if it would be possible for the chairman to clarify, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
when you say some plans,
Mm-hmm.
you want more accurate, more precise drawings?
Yes. Yep. Something that, so like the sketch that you had provided before,
Mhm.
doesn't really delineate how far, doesn't clearly show the that proposed parking space with dimensions. We know how big it is, what the dimension is between that and the front lot lines. We know what that dimension is. The plan didn't have we have the trees on one plan and the sort of the design on another. So just sort of getting all that information together so that it's easier for the board to evaluate everything.
Okay, and the fact that there is a window with egress right there, the basement
Yep.
window, is that
So you would need to
does
be
that make
able
it not viable?
No, I mean we certainly have have houses in town where the egress window is directly onto the driveway. But you would want the parking space not to overlap with that required egress opening. Because I'm assuming it has a well and a ladder to get out. Or is it just at grade?
It's level. It's totally level with
Oh,
the
okay. Yeah, then as long as there's sufficient space, I don't I think it's 3 feet, but in front of the window to allow for emergency access. But otherwise, if it's
it would not have 3 feet.
okay,
So actually leaving the car there would be an issue. But if
Uh,
there was like a theoretical
mhm,
driveway that extended there, but the car would be parked
yeah.
on the other side of the corner.
I mean, the other
That's a
thought is
question whether
too,
I mean, I just want to be
yeah,
transparent. I don't want to
yeah.
tell
I
you
mean,
to park the car there.
if that window is not an egress window, if that is not a bedroom and cannot be used as a bedroom, then it's not an issue.
Mhm.
But if it is, if there's an egress window there and the ingress window is taken away and then it's used as a bedroom, that's a much larger problem than anything else.
Can I define whether it's used as a bedroom or not?
No,
Or is it
I see
no, I'm
Mr.
just asking you,
LeBlanc
how
shaking
does
his
that
head.
work?
That's a question for the building inspector.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because that's always a very tricky question.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon.
I just point out that if we were to turn back to looking at a special permit for two driveways, it is important to look not just beyond the general special permit section, but section, what is it, 610, 6110?
6110, I think it's 6110B maybe.
Right. Which actually includes several different things you have to show, or that we are supposed to take into account in deciding whether to grant a special permit, many of which you've sort of are in effect have talked about already, and the various things that we're required to consider. So there's about 10 things there. The thing I wanted to stress, because it came up in the hearing and because Mr. Moore raised it, and that is one of them is it has to preserve protected trees as defined in the town bylaws. Now, the one that's a public shade tree, I don't think is a protected tree under the bylaws. That's protected under state law, but you can check that out. But the other one that's in the front setback is a protected tree under our bylaws. And one of the things you'd have to be able to consider is whether you can provide sufficient assurances that those would all be preserved. And a conversation with the town arborist will give you a lot of what you need to know in order to make that happen. So it isn't, you don't necessarily have to go out and spend a lot of money hiring somebody unless you really get to a point where you've got to, where this is the critical issue. But the town arborist is happy to consult with you and to look and see and give you his view as to whether or not you can meet that. And that would be a useful thing for you to do if you're going this process.
Yep. So that's section 6110A2 is that section on second driveways.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, can I ask for clarification about the protected status of the tree that is on the
Yep.
property? How is that defined and what does that mean? Because the tree is currently hitting my roof actually on windy days again and again and again. So I'm just curious.
Sure. So I don't know quite well, but I would identify Mr. Moore and ask Mr. Moore if he can better explain the requirements for a protected tree. Mr. Moore?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair. Steve Moore, the reason he is pointing to me is I'm a co-chair of the tree committee who created the bylaw many years ago. Protected trees, the term protected tree means they're in the setbacks of a house, and the bylaw kicks in when significant construction is going to occur on a house, or a house is to be demolished and rebuilt, something like that. And all the trees that are in the setback, which is, I believe, is it 20 feet on the front and 10 on the sides and 10 on the rear, are protected, meaning you can't cut them down, or if you do, you have to pay what can be a pretty hefty fine or fee. It's $375 per diameter, breast height inch of diameter. So what I would suggest in terms of what you might need to do with the tree is get it trimmed for some money. You can make sure that doesn't happen, because yes, that's always a fear when large trees are in your homes. But this would be a tree that would be protected under the bylaw if you were to do the construction.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. That was really helpful. So the concern is that by having a driveway close to the tree, it might affect the tree? Because I had no intention to remove the tree.
No, is it just because the roots are directly underneath? So placing a driveway, part of it is the excavation for the driveway itself, because usually it's like 6 to 12 inches of excavation to put in the proper materials. But then also it's increasing the loading on top of the roots, so it compresses the soil above the roots, which makes the roots less effective and can kill the roots. So that's sort of the
So there are more
concerns.
kind of issues putting the driveway close to the tree than actually over the sewage easement.
Yeah. So Mr. Moore, is there a how is it do you know, or is there a specific rule for what the diameter around the base of a tree would be required to be protected?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The rule of thumb, which is not in the bylaw but is what is used by the tree warden, is a foot of radius for every inch of tree trunk width. So if a trunk is 10 inches wide, it would be a circle would have to have a 10-foot radius, which is where the roots are. The taller the tree, the deeper and wider the roots go. This looks like a pine tree, so that probably a lot of the roots are down as opposed to sideways. But that being said, talking to the tree warden will fill you in on the concerns and ways to deal with it and that sort of thing. I don't know the specifics of this particular lot because I'd have to go see it, other than what I saw in the pictures. But I would talk to the tree warden. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. So, but that still would not qualify as like a soil issue, having a tree.
No.
Right.
No, because it's not a permanent issue.
So it seems to me like there are really sort of like no options left.
I mean, I think it would, as Mr. Moore had said, I think it would, talking to the tree warden to sort of get a better sense as to how you can avoid the trees.
Right. Well,
would give you a better sense as to where you could conceivably run a parking, a driveway.
I mean, Mr. I appreciate that, but I know
Yeah.
the space really well, and so
Yeah.
I can kind of calculate,
Oh, I see.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's no really need for a specialist to come. There isn't that much space. So
Okay.
if it's a foot per inch, it's not a very wide trunk, but that still would take up kind of most of the space where we're
Yeah.
trying. So between, it's just narrowing all of it. And again, as I said, like
Mhm.
we've got now the bedroom egress issue. We're just kind of we're not sort of really limiting the space. So we're kind of between the walkway and the corner of the house, really, with very limited space
Yeah.
in terms of options. So I would be curious about proposed solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr.
I mean, I think
Chairman. Sorry,
Mr.
it just
Baranowski?
looks like Mr. Moore might have had a comment about the tree. That's all I was just noting.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Moore. Did you have another comment about that tree?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for noticing, folks. I think it would make sense to talk to the tree warden, just because, number one, I don't want to misstate something, because he's the one that has to make the official agreement or not to a tree plan that you would create to how you protect the tree. And there are various methods to do it. He can help you with whether or not it's a possibility here, and it may very well be. And it's no more than he comes out and looks at it, and you talk to him about it. I just would suggest that would be a smart way to go if you feel that, oh, it's going to be a no everywhere I turn. He may say, no, this may be okay for such and such a reason. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Yeah, so I think at this stage, I think sort of the best option would be for us to propose a continuance. So that will give you some time to, if nothing else, to just sort of think it through, and if you possibly have a conversation with the tree warden about access or whatnot, and then you can come back at that time. You can either we'll continue the hearing. You can either present what it is you're proposing to do in a more defined format, or if at that time you've determined that you don't think it can go forward, you can always request to have your case withdrawn.
All right, I really, really appreciate, again, your time, your
Sure.
expertise, Mr. Chairman, the board, and everybody else here. Thank you so much.
Would you prefer to continue to January 13th or to January 27th?
I'll have to sort of see what my work schedule is like, but I think the 13th would be possible, or if not, the 27th. Can I sort of touch
So
base with
unfortunately, we need to close to a
the
definitive
specific
date.
date now?
Yeah.
Just
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon?
just if we continue to the 23rd and it turned out that that was inconvenient for the applicant, we can always continue again if to make
That is very true.
you don't have to. We have to put in something, but we don't have to live.
okay. Okay, well let's put it for the 27th, and hopefully you'll give us enough time to
Okay.
get all the answers.
Okay, so we would be continuing to January 27th. Great. Okay, so with that, I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Arlington continue public hearing for docket 3878, 190 Mystic Valley Parkway to Tuesday, January 27th, 2026 at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So, vote of members present, Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We are continued on 190 Mystic Valley Parkway. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you as well. So that is the last of our regular items this evening. The board, as I noted, does not have a meeting on Tuesday, December 23rd. So our next meeting after that will be Tuesday, January 13th. I would ask Ms. Ralston if she knows or has a sense as to what might be on that agenda.
So we have 307 Washington Street.
Okay.
That is a National Grid property that is going to, I think, put an addition.
Mhm.
And that is the only one I have right now. It
Okay.
is in OpenGov and in Novus, so if you need to start reading it, it's there.
Okay. Great. I have no other business at this time. So with that, I will thank you all for your participation in tonight's meeting of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals. I appreciate everyone's patience throughout the meeting. I would especially like to thank Colleen Ralston and Mike Champa for their assistance in preparing for and hosting our online meeting. Please note the purpose of the board's recording of the meeting is to ensure the creation of an accurate record of its proceedings. It is our understanding the recording made by ACMi will be available on demand at acmi.tv within the coming days. Arlington Community Media is dedicated to providing an electronic forum for the free exchange of information and ideas which reflect the talent, skills, interests, concerns, and diversity of the Arlington community. Please visit acmi.tv to learn how to support this valuable public resource. If anyone has comments or recommendations, please send them via email to zba@town.arlington.ma.us. That email address is also listed on the Zoning Board of Appeals website. And to conclude tonight's meeting, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Roll call vote of the board to adjourn. Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mr. Baranowski,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all so very much. Happy New Year to all, and we will see you in January.